In a very special FaithWorks program, both Sister Helen Prejean and Matt Buckman, General Director of Fresno Grand Opera, discussed the opera based on Sister's memoir, Dead Man Walking. Hello again and welcome to another edition of FaithWorks. It's my privilege again to have Sister Helen Prejean. But this time she's not coming alone. She's coming with Matthew Buckman, who happens to be the General Director of Fresno Grand Opera. They're here together because the book, Dead Man Walking, as you may know, in 2000, already has become another form. It's now an opera, which has been performed in many, many beautiful cities, and sure enough, we are going to have it performed in Modesto and in Fresno. So we will be giving you more information about the opera during this program. I'd like to begin if Sister could just tell us briefly the reason that you are finding the idea of an opera coming from the book very appropriate, and then Matt will pick up with something about this opera, how it's been performed, and what Fresno's going to do about it. So, Sister Helen.
Well, the heart of it is when I came out of the execution chamber, when the first man I was with who was executed, it was the middle of the night, they'd killed him in an electric chair, and I remember thinking, the people are never going to get close to this. He was guilty of a terrible crime. People are going to just say he got his just punishment, and reflection would end. That I had been a witness, brought in, and seen it, and that I had to tell the story. And spirituality for me, faith, is what gives us eyes and a heart to get underneath what's going on, to try to read it all with the heart of Christ. So what was going to be the journey? How would I take people with me on this journey to go into a person's done an unspeakable crime, we're outraged over the crime, we say he ought to die, but then what happens? How does it heal us? How does the state take in his life, and what happens to the victims? All of that. So I wrote the book, Dead Man Walking. The Dead Man Walking book came out in '93. By '94 it was a hardback. Susan Sarandon read it in '94. By the end of '95 we had a film. And we got 4 nominations for the Oscars, and Susan Sarandon got an Academy Award for her portrayal of me. And it was a portrayal of a faith journey. That's what the whole thing is. So we had the book and we had the movie. And then I got a call one day and said, Sister Helen, guess what? They're going to make an opera of Dead Man Walking. And the first thing I thought was, perfect. Because the fullest form of art is drama and music, is opera. And I said, boy, if the artist will do this right, we're going to have this journey, this story to bring people into both sides of the issue. And of course, whenever you're doing art, and Tim Robbins explained this to me, he said, now look, I'm going to do this movie, Dead Man Walking. Now, I'm against the death penalty personally, okay? But if I do a movie where all I do is shape it, do the crime early on so it's real fuzzy in people's mind, and then all the sympathy goes with the person about to be executed and his mama and his family, that's propaganda.
Yeah, yeah.
But art means you just take people underneath the issue and visit the suffering on both sides. And I began to picture that with the drama. There's nothing like live drama unfolded in front of you. Because film is on celluloid. It's all canned. Yeah, and it's visual, but with music, which takes us into places of our hearts we don't even know we have.
So when you say they called, who was
well,
they?
Well, it was my literary agent. We always work through the literary agent. And so they approach her because we want to do a contract. And you got to trust your artist. Oh, yeah. You got to turn it over to him. And so there was this guy, well, and of course Matt knows this too, but J.K. Gee, he had never written an opera before. And Terrence McNally, great playwright, but he had never been a librettist for an opera before. So I was never part of an opera before. So, I mean, you know, all of us, this Lotfi Mansouri at the San Francisco Opera wanted to do a modern opera for the new millennium, and modern operas almost always fail. When I did talk to Jake, I don't know if you know this, Matt, but when I did have my first conversation with Jake, and he said, Sister Helen, I'm the composer. I'm going to write the music for this opera. And I said to him, Jake, I don't know boo scat about opera, but I just got 2 requests of you. One is the theme has got to be about redemption, that everybody's seeking to be healed in redemption. Wow. And the other is, you're not going to do it in that atonal music where we're going to come out and I mean, we're going to have a melody like we can hum in the shower, huh? I mean, you know, something with a tune. You're going to do it with. And he goes, I write music for the human voice. I promise you. And he kept those 2 promises.
So, Matt, you fit in here. As the general director of the Fresno Grand Opera, how did you become acquainted with this particular piece? What's some of the history of the performances after the debut in San Francisco in 2000? And how did it get to be that Fresno decided ahead of some other large cities that we would land this big fish? How did that happen?
Well, you know, the piece was in my general awareness, I guess you can say, mainly because of the success of it. That's what first drew me to it, because as Sister Helen noted, new works typically don't really find legs. They usually get performed once or twice, and then you know, history forgets them, unfortunately. And with the case of Jake's piece, it's had over 50 productions worldwide since it was premiered in 2000, and that never happens. And so the general success of the piece is, of course, what brought it to my radar just in my profession. But then digging into the piece was really where I fell in love with it and thought, okay, our community needs to experience this. Because the story, for me, is actually uplifting. And I say that to a lot of people, and they look at me a little confused because the title of the opera would not suggest an uplifting story. But for me, the message of redemption is so strong in the piece, and the grasp of spirituality in the piece is so strong that you can't help but find it really uplifting at the end of the day, even though it is a sad story. And I think what I personally appreciate about the piece is it doesn't ask the listener to change their mind about a subject. It doesn't even really challenge their belief. It just asks questions about the subject and about the death penalty in this country and how human beings treat each other. And it doesn't ask you to make a decision. It just, as you have said time and time and again, it just presents both sides of the story very, very fairly. And for the person listening or experience this work, it takes you on a journey. And for me, for a community like ours with a subject like this, I thought it was a worthwhile venture for our company to do.
I'd like to read only 2 sentences from a review from the original debut in San Francisco, where it says this: Dead Men Walking reaches an audience on its own innate strengths, including the plain-spoken but haunting moral complexities of Terence McNally's libretto and the expressive splendor of Heggie's score. Although Dead Man was conceived as a specifically American story in its treatment of the death penalty, its ability to encompass larger, more traditional operatic themes, grief, love, forgiveness, justice, and the meaty accessibility of the music spoke instantly to a wide audience. Obviously, it's repeating some of the things you said. How is it that, Sister, you've seen this? What have you most appreciated in the performances you've seen of this fantastic?
Well, I'm going to tell you, I think the heart of the opera, and Jake Heggie, the composer, called me when he had arrived at this, when it was given to him. And he plinked it out on a piano and is singing it to me on the phone because he so wanted me to just get a glimpse of the heart of the opera, which is where I'm in the middle, and I'm making mistakes as I go. It really is a journey. I make a big mistake with the victim's family. I don't reach out to them. I didn't know what to do with them. Here's a man about to be executed, and I know what human rights is and all. I'm in the middle The victims' families are on one side, both couples of the parents. One has lost a son, one has lost a daughter. And on the other side is Joseph DeRoche, the death row inmate in it, and his mother, who has just had to appeal before the pardon board not to kill her boy. Wow. And they are singing, "You don't know what it's like." So the victims are singing, "You don't know what it's like to see your child go out the door." And I've actually had victims' families say, if I'd known the last words to my child were, I would never see him alive, and I told about the hem of a skirt, and you hear them singing, "You don't know what it's like, see your child go out of the door," and the last thing you say are, "Clean your room, hang up your coat, shut the door." And then Joseph's mother is singing, "You don't know what it's like to see your child go out, to see your child slip through your fingers. I want him to know how much I love him," because she's feeling her guilt. And I'm going, I'm sorry, and I am sorry. One of the victims' families, Mr. Hart, and I really get into it because he just goes, "You need to be," paraphrase, "you need to be sorry. You're in over your head. Yeah. Can't you believe that God should punish this man with death because he killed my daughter? How can you not get that?" And I'm going, I'm just trying to do what Christ, and he says, "Don't give me Christ. Give me Helen Prejean. Wow. Don't you think that this man deserves to die?" I mean, it is tough. My. And I'm caught in it. There's just, and Jake said, everybody's singing the same pain. Boy. You don't know what it's like. So it really explores for the victims' families too, what is going to heal them? And they're going to attend the execution. They're going to watch it. Can that heal them? You watch now as the state kills the one who killed your loved one, and you get to watch that, and you see them struggling with it. And you see Mr. Hart toward the end approaching it. But he wants to see this death. He needs to see this death. And he says at one point, "Well, I know that my pain is about my child's death, not really his death." And so the struggle of and you know, everybody sitting there, please God, we don't have to deal with a hurt as bad as someone being killed, but we all know what it is to be hurt, or even worse, somebody we love being hurt. And how shall we respond? Shall we respond by getting even, or is there another road? Is there another direction? So when my character, Sister Helen, sings, my journey to the truth, my journey," the music is haunting. Wow. The audience is on the biggest journey of all. And that's what art does. Art opens the curtains, brings us deeper into the things going on at a very, very spiritual level in us. What am I about? I mean, people are going to be thinking of that person that did something to my son in school, and I can't wait to get them. Little things, big things, but it's just part of life.
Matt, can you, we have to take a break exactly at this point, but when we come back, I have a good question from Matt to start us off, talking about how it is that the Fresno Grand Opera is looking at staging this marvelous, challenging, powerful, poignant, brand new opera, only 16 years old. We'll be back in 1 minute.
For over 25 years, KNXT has been serving the people of the San Joaquin Valley with good family television that's just not available anywhere else. It's important for you, the viewer, to help support this valuable tool of ministry. KNXT needs to continue to grow and bring you important programming about your faith. But sometimes it's hard to stop and find the time. Make it easy. Go to knxt.tv and find out how easy it is to support your Catholic television station, KNXT TV.
Welcome back to what I think one of our very best faith work programs. We have Sister Helen Prejean, who is, as you know, Dead Man Walking, The Journey Continues. And then we have Matt BUCKMAN, who happens to be at this point the General Director of Fresno Grand Opera. And I direct my question this time to Matthew. Mm-hmm. Matthew, so you've seen the play, you've seen the opera, you've seen the movie, you've read the book. Mm-hmm. So What is it that you know that this fits in, or is a challenge, or is a real blessing that you are going to bring this to Fresno? What's on your plate right now?
Absolutely. Yeah, the first thing that I'll say, and the reason I was excited to do it, is it's, for me, a perfect fusion of standard traditional opera and something that makes it uniquely American. My stump speech in my work is that in 21st century United States, we really struggle with opera in our communities because we largely tell 18th and 19th century European stories in a country that's inherently unique. We pride ourselves on being not European as much as possible, and yet with this art form and with symphony orchestras and ballets, we primarily stick to telling 19th century European stories, and we struggle to understand why opera struggles in our country. And for me, it's not hard to identify what the problem is. And so as I've sought in my work to re-engage opera with a 21st century American culture, the first thing I wanted to try to do was find American stories to tell. And there is not, I think, a more uniquely American story than Dead Man Walking. And it's a perfect piece to start to explore this world because it is such a traditional opera in every other way.
Yeah.
Jake is what's referred to, the composer, Jake Heggie, is what's being now referred to as a neo-melodist or a postmodernist, meaning he doesn't write in the avant-garde like we used to very much in the 20th century. We spent a lot of time in the 20th century writing music that isn't enjoyable to listen to. And Jake started as a songwriter, and his generation of composers are focusing more on music that is easily listened to by the listener. And Dead Man Walking is a perfect example of that. It's his first opera. It's his first transition from songwriting to large-scale vocal works. And he writes incredibly listenable music, which is always the first, most important thing an audience wants. But then he tells the story so well. I mean, the first time I listened to this piece, I was only going to listen to half of it one night and then half of it the next night, and I couldn't put the thing away. I listened to it from 11:30 or 11 at night till 1:30 in the morning. I couldn't stop because it's such a wonderful piece. And then, as Sister Helen likes to joke quite a bit, the opportunity to grab a hold of a piece where the subjects of the piece are still alive.
Oh, yeah.
You know, her calling card is Madame Butterfly's calling, and she wants to come work in your company because she's the modern day Madame Butterfly.
Madame Butterfly didn't get to go around on media and tell the story. Hey, y'all come to my opera because this happened to me.
But
So
it's
I'm
such
glad-
a
it is a service.
Oh, it is.
It's a service.
Oh, yeah.
it's a wonderful
yeah.
opportunity to take a piece that is so well done and such an amazing work that tells so much about our culture, American culture, and subjects that are relevant in our culture, in our time, in our place in the world, and actually have the subject of the opera to be able to talk about. And you know, for example, I'll talk a little bit out of turn, but it makes me laugh. Sister Helen met our costumer for the show last night, and she said, "Now you're not going to put me in a habit, are you? I don't want to be in a habit." When do you get to do that in any other opera that we do, where you get to sit and talk with the person about the woman who's going to portray you? How would you want them dressed?
Oh, my,
What kind
Yeah,
of
no,
personality should they have?
I mean, I have a new appreciation for the film, too. Tim Robbins wanted Susan Sarandon to be in a habit. And, well, because she was opposite Sean Penn, and they had gone out together. He had a reason for wanting her to dress in the habit. I found all this out later.
Oh, my.
And, but I said, we don't dress in the habit. I mean, Vatican II called us to be people, and nuns just picked up Vatican II. And it's not to get more comfortable. It's so that we can just be one with the people. Jesus didn't dress in special rabbi clothes saying, I'm the Son of God clothes, as if.
Just the Infant of Prague. That one.
No, the Infant of Prague.
He overdid it.
Oh, man. You don't know anything
Sorry
about
about
the
that.
Infant of Prague. No, it's an inside Catholic joke. They kept dressing this poor little baby, the infant. Well,
But
anyway.
even costuming has this personality to it.
Well, and to be able to sit
Wow.
and talk with the person who is the subject of the opera and
Wow,
say,
yeah.
what do you think about this, or what do you think? I mean, that we don't get to do that. And our community now, Fresno's community and Modesto's community, gets to experience Sister
yeah.
Helen, and that's not something. I mean, I joked a lot. We did Tosca last year, and I like to make the joke that I tried to get Puccini to come see the show, and he didn't return my phone calls. So to be able to have the subject of your work.
That's really a great joke. I mean, you could do a stand-up comedy thing when you finish opera, don't you think?
I don't believe you for a second.
One more thing is, how have you been able to assemble the company, the singers, the opera stars, the symphony, the orchestra that you'll have? How easily and how successfully have you felt you've landed just what you needed?
You know, that's a very good question. When you're doing a new work, you don't have the long history of performance tradition to be able to fall on. And so for me, in choosing the director, we wanted somebody who has a lot of experience doing newer operas because they know what it takes. And so the director of the opera, a gentleman named Michael Morey from Toronto, is the artistic director of a company that does nothing but new works. And so he comes with a background already predisposed to doing new works. And for us, we wanted a cast of people that had never done the roles before.
And I love that.
Yeah.
To give the young stars a chance to get in there.
So we worked with Jake on some suggestions for people that he would like to have seen done the role and hadn't yet.
Wow.
And so we've got a cast almost entirely of people who have not done the role before.
I love
so
that.
that they're exploring it for the first time together and looking for nuances in characters that haven't existed before. So that was a priority for ours as well. And we've really assembled a fine cast. But again, for me, if there's a reason to come and see this work, if you've never been in an opera hall before, or if you're just not sure about it, the things I would say to anybody is it's beautiful music to listen to. It's tonal music. So the idea that it's a modern opera and all the connotations that typically come with that are not in this piece, because it is a newer kind of work that's been written very, very lovely to listen to. And it's just a powerful story.
And you know, and Terrence McNally, who is the librettist, it's an American idiom. And they have the words up there, because sometimes when people are singing, it's hard to hear the words. And you can hear it. And Jake is proud of, he has a rock and roll in it, it's spiritual in it, a spiritual.
Nice.
God will gather us around, father, mother, sister, brother. What all does it have in it, man? It has the choral, strong chorus singing the Our Father as he's being led to execution. And then the medley, and
At
then,
the end of Act One.
right, and then of course the individual arias.
Yeah.
And a wonderful piece when finally Sister Helen's breaking through to the death row inmate, because he won't admit what he did, and she says, "The Bible says the truth will set you free." He said, "The Bible says that?" "Yeah, sing it with me." "The truth will," he says, "I like that." And they start singing it together, because he hadn't been able to tell the truth, see? And they sing, "The truth will set you free."
The music in that little 30 to 45 second scene is my favorite in the entire
Oh,
opera.
my, nice.
Mine is with Sister Rose, where the whole thing of forgiveness.
The duet?
Yeah, of the what Jake calls the slumber party scene, where I can't sleep. Sister Rose comes in, and about the forgiveness thing, that the gentleness.
The thing with Jake's music, and that scene you were talking about with "The Truth Will Set You Free," in one 30 to 45 second bit of music, you have almost like Puccini and Gershwin.
Oh my God.
Trapped together a little bit in the same room, and it is such glorious music. I mean, it's that's the one scene I play over and over again.
Is it?
Yeah.
When this shows up, I want to hear where the Puccini part comes in and the Gershwin part
Okay.
comes
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh,
we'll go listen to it. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm so looking forward. Do you want to make a plug, and they can put the graphic up over you, time, date?
Absolutely,
Tickets, how do you get them?
So we're doing the performance in both Modesto and Fresno as part of the new partnership between our two communities. And so the performances in Modesto are April 29th and May 1st. And you can get tickets at townsendopera.com. And then in Fresno, at Fresno Grand Opera on Saturday, May 7th at the Soroyan Theater. And you can go to Fresno Grand Opera to learn more and to get tickets. FresnoGrandOpera.org, sorry. Yeah.
Super.
Yeah.
I know we'll have people, we will be doing plugs. Sister's going to do some little spots that will give you in 30 seconds a little bit of a excitement about this wonderful opera. Sister, we had lunch and we learned that in a heavy opera is usually heavy usually, you do need a little bit of humor. So maybe you could share briefly any of those moments that are a little bit of comic relief.
You actually have me driving. Sister Helen, boy, it's a formidable. She's on stage the whole first act.
Oh, my.
And she's driving to the prison, and she's singing. And I do, God forgive me, do tend to have a heavy foot on the accelerator. And I've had more than I want to recount about it, being with policemen and being stopped for speeding. Sure enough, see her on the road, then you hear, wow, wow. See this blue light, and here comes the policeman onto the stage in the little scene. How fast was I going? And he says, "You were way over, ma'am. You woke me up. Taking a little nap. You woke me up." And then he just, and he realizes, "You're a nun?" "Yeah." "Well, I never gave a ticket to no nun before. Look, I gave a ticket," this really happened, "to an IRS agent one year, and I got audited that year. Look, tell you what, we'll let you pass." And then he ends with, "Say a prayer for my mama, cancer." And she said, "I'm going to write that down, say a prayer for his mama." And I do that. I actually do that. And so there it is, the speeding ticket right there.
Oh, my.
So we needed that little moment.
Well, but you got to tell the story about how that got into
I don't know if we have
show.
time. We have time to tell one more funny story.
We've got half of a minute.
Pat Saunier, first one executed, needed a place to be buried. We buried him in our cemetery with our sisters right next to Sister Isabel, who was known when the girls from St. Joseph's Academy would get married, she would whisper loud enough for everybody to hear, "I'm glad I don't have to share my bed with no man." And she's buried next to Pat Saunier for all eternity. When you visit cemetery, you can see the dirt still moving because Izzy is rolling over like that.
I'm sure she is. In the year of mercy, what better opera would you want to see than Dead Men Walking? And in the year of mercy, what better theme than forgiveness? What better books to read than Dead Men Walking or The Death of Innocence? Why don't we get in tune with the Pope on this, work towards the abolition of the death penalty, become more sensitive to the victims of all crime, and a sense of mercy and forgiveness for those who perpetrate these crimes. I want to thank Sister Helen and Matt Buckman for being here today. We hope you'll enjoy watching this fantastic opera and becoming friends of the Fresno Grand Opera and Sister Helen Prejean and her ministry of death penalty abolition. God bless.